Hello, everyone. It's Wednesday, your favorite day of the week. Sorry, I'm running a little bit behind. I had some technological issues because I am horrible with technology. So we are on a slight delay this week. I apologize, but it is Wednesday, and I'm doing Whitmer. So here we are for your weekly Whitmer Wednesday. This week we got a good one. We got a response to Governor Kathy Hochul, New York State Governor Kathy Hochul's State of the State. And I also have a response to both her and the Senate Republicans because they issued their plan, which we will discuss. We will discuss as well because we got a lot to talk about today. So let's get started. First of all, the other day, Kathy Hochul outlined her New York State of the State response. I have it. I watched it 3-4 times, so you don't have to because it was miserable. If you want to donate to me, go right ahead. It will fund the therapy sessions I need after listening to those psychopathic elected officials essentially gaslight us for 45 minutes. More on that in a minute here. But 2023 State of the State response, or State of the State. I printed it. I read it. It's 280 pages. Pretty thick, couple 100-page document that says what Kathy Hochul is going to do to fix all your problems. First thing I noticed about this is that it's got a great picture of New York City across the bottom. Really accents what she really wants to focus on is New York City. She forgets that there's a whole nother part of the state. And a lot of her plans and platforms really forget about upstate and the rest of the state outside of New York City. She knows how she got elected. She knows where her voters are. She knows what she needs to do to win re-election. And really, that's going to leave a lot of upstate people disappointed. But she does mention that Micron, they were able to use corporate welfare to bribe Micron to throw a couple jobs our way. And I do believe she mentioned another one in Genesee County where they bribed another company through corporate welfare to give us a couple jobs. So she kind of throws that out there to show she knows where upstate is, I guess. So that's really where we get started. So you ask, what is the State of the State? I'm going to steal this line from Steve Filano. The state of New York State is an authoritarian's dream. She talks about crises facing New Yorkers. She mentions gun violence. She mentions housing crisis. She mentions climate change. She mentions, healthcare issues. She doesn't mention why these problems started. It was a beautiful form of gaslighting because she acknowledges that there's an issue with gun violence. And she's going to pass more gun laws. She acknowledges that New York State SAFE Act is the most stringent, and New York State has one of the most strict gun laws in the country, but that hasn't provided any help with the gun violence. So they're going to pass more laws. Granted, the more laws that we already have in the books aren't solving the problem, but more laws will. That circular logic that, politicians love. She gets into that, which is pretty sad because if you guys follow the court case when there was the lawsuit against some of the gun laws on the books in New York State argued that they said, yes, we will acknowledge that the gun laws that we're creating and the gun laws that we're basing our new laws off of were used to disarm the Native American population and are rooted in systemic racism. We acknowledge that, but we don't care. And really, I said this earlier, and I'll say this again. The only good thing the SAFE Act did, I shouldn't say it's a good thing. It's not a good thing. I'm going to take that back. The only thing the SAFE Act did successfully do is imprison minorities for victimless crimes. 12,000 or so arrests and charges under the SAFE Act. 94% of them are non-white. So really, all the SAFE Act and additional gun control in New York State has done is essentially empower and keep the systemic racism alive. So really not a good time for minorities in New York when it comes to these gun laws, because you're just going to see more minorities going to jail for victimless crimes and zero impact on crime, as evidenced by Study has shown that gun control laws have zero impact on violent crime, including the SAFE Act. If you follow the trends in crime pre-SAFE Act and post-SAFE Act, there is almost zero difference in crime rates pre-SAFE Act, post-SAFE Act. So really, it's smoke and mirrors and gaslighting by our politicians. She goes into talking about healthcare and how there's a staffing crisis. Well, Kathy, why is there a staffing crisis? Because New Yorkers are leaving the state. New York State leads in population loss. Once again, New York State's greatest export is its people. We just ship people out. People are leaving our state pretty quickly. Nurses are leaving because the regulations and the rules, there's just better places to go. There's more tax-friendly states. There's states with better cost of living. So your dollar goes farther. So nurses are leaving. And then the ones that were willing to stay, you fired a large chunk of them for not getting vaccinated. So now we have a healthcare crisis and a shortage of staffing. Shocking that happened, right? Like, imagine this. You tell people they can't do their job, and then there's a shortage of people that want to do the job. And it's like mind-blowing. These politicians like don't understand it. It's pretty comical. She mentions the housing crisis. There's a housing shortage. People are leaving the state because there's a housing crisis. There's a housing shortage. Not only is that factually incorrect, that is not why people are leaving the state. Andrew Cuomo, our previous governor, who resigned after a few sexual harassment allegations and, killing 15,000 elderly people in nursing homes, he blamed the weather for people leaving the state. And Kathy Hochul said, I'll do you one better. Hold my beer. I'm going to blame housing shortages for why people are leaving the state. That doesn't make any sense, because if you're in the state, you live somewhere, so you are in housing, and then you are leaving. But not the point. Let's acknowledge why houses aren't being built in some of these areas, especially New York City, where she wants to focus. Overbearing regulations, overbearing business permitting and licensing regulations, overbearing tax structure. New York State is not a business-friendly state. It's actually one of the least business-friendly states in the nation. So if you own a business, why would you want to go to where you're overregulated, overtaxed, cost of employment is at an all-time high, cost of insurance is at an all-time high, when you can go to other states? And she even acknowledges interstate as state. She says Florida, Texas, somewhere else, I forget, I think she says like Seattle or Washington and Maryland. She mentions 4 areas that are building housing faster than New York City. They all have lower regulations. Shocked. I mean, again, this isn't hard to know. If you have an IQ over 37, it's pretty easy to see. Now, Kathy Hochul, once again, doesn't understand it. Her logic is, well, the government's just going to build housing. Okay, great, but not solving the problem of why are people leaving? Why are people not coming here? Overbearing regulations, overbearing taxation, highest cost of living, one of the least business-friendly states. But again, they don't acknowledge that. And lastly, this is what I really like, because she keeps going on about crime. She's finally acknowledging that some people do care about crime. And so she wants to talk about more police and funding the police and supporting the police. And I've always said this, and a lot of Republicans get mad when I say this. So if you're a Republican watching this, be ready to be offended. But I always said that Kathy Hochul loves the police. Kathy Hochul loves the police department. A lot of these left progressives love the police because the police are the enforcement arm of their progressive programs. This is something that the GOP fails to understand, and why they get smoked all the time in New York State, right? Kathy Hochul can pass whatever gun control she wants. She can pass whatever climate bill she wants. Ban gas stoves, ban wood stoves, lock your business down, force your kids to wear masks, overbearing taxation, overbearing regulations. Kathy Hochul isn't wearing body armor and carrying an AR and knocking on your door and forcing you to pay taxes and forcing you to comply with the SAFE Act and forcing you to change out your wood stove. She's sending agents of the government in the form of police. So she acknowledges that she wants more police staffing, more police budgets, an increase to police departments. because she knows that they're the ones that are going to be enforcing her progressive policies. Kathy Hochul loves the police. I will say, though, that luckily the market has shown that no one in New York wants to be a cop, so there's a staffing issue. There is a downside there, which is they're going to rely on more surveillance, but there are some good groups, Stop out of New York City, and there's a group in Buffalo that's pretty good of countering surveillance oversight, because really I think that's going to be their next step is mass surveillance programs and mass surveillance programs and mass kind of like, spying programs. They're going to use your Ring camera. They're going to use your house cameras to do stuff like that. You're going to see a rise in traffic cameras, which luckily there are groups. One is BLR, Black Love Triumphs in the Rust Belt or something. There's a group of people in Buffalo that have actually successfully challenged traffic cameras and have won, which is good because that's just more, more government surveillance, more government technology, more government oversight. So to get to my point, watching the state of the state, and I'm going to steal some of Steve Filato's points because he's my friend that said I could. New York State is an authoritarian's dream. Kathy Hochul has decided to seize all power in a central government and decide which corporations can exist through corporate welfare, which is eerily similar to the definition of fascism, but let's not get into that because, let's not talk about that. And you have a pretty easy blue point, government manufactured a crisis response to COVID. That response to COVID has left New York State in some pretty bad straits. Businesses went out of business. People left the state. You had a lot of population loss. You had a lot of business loss. And now it's, oh no, it's time to pay the piper. It's the consequences of our own actions. And so her response are more government, more government, more government. The government created the crisis and is now selling you the solution in a form of really weird gaslighting, abuse, manipulation. I mean, watching this, one of the weirdest things that creeped me out was the very beginning, and I'm gonna get a clip of this, is watching the guy that introduced Kathy Hochul. He said something like, Kathy Hochul was sent from God. These politicians believe that they are greater beings than us. They truly believe that there's some sort of superhuman godlike deity sent from heaven to solve you dumb peasants' problems. And watching that state of the state, that was the whole vibe I got. And I'm not kidding. And you can disagree because you love Kathy Hochul, you love big government, you love more government. Look, you can love more government and still watch this and say, yeah, this is weird. I felt like I was watching an abusive ex I used to have. I had an ex that used to gaslight and abuse me. And what she would do was create a problem and then have a solution. Like, for example, one day she purposely did something that had a bad consequence and then fixed it, kind of, and made me tell her how great she was for looking out for me. But I'm like, you're worse off. I'm worse off in this situation. You kind of kneecapped me, and then you gave me a crutch. I'm still crippled. This doesn't make any sense. And that was the whole vibe of the state of the state. So now we're pushing 14 minutes. So I'm gonna shift now to a different response. New York State's future is environmental tyranny, housing tyranny, and medical tyranny. Essentially, central power. The government will take care of you. I will end on this, a quote that says, "Those of you who sacrifice freedom for security deserve neither." And you're going to get what you get when it comes to this. If you truly believe in centralizing government power into the, governors of New York's hands, good luck. You're in for a shitstorm. You deserve it. I'm sorry. So then you say, well, Duane, thank God for the GOP. What is the Senate, the New York State Senate GOP's response? And I read it, and I watched their video. I watched Rob Orr, who's from Western New York, who's like the Senate majority leader. I watched him go in front of his cameras and act like he had a shot and he's a hero. Rob Orr, you're so great. Rob Orr's a dingleberry. And I'm reading the Senate Republicans Rescue New York 2023 agenda, ignoring the fact that the Democrats have a supermajority. So really this is toilet paper. And all the GOP assemblymen and senators can really do is say, oh, the Democrats are bad, ignoring the fact that the GOP is a fraud scheme in itself. Let's talk about what is the Senate GOP's response to the state of the state. Now, I will tell you again, I have to tell you, this is the Senate GOP's response, because when I first read it, I actually thought this was Andrew Cuomo's moderate Democrat response, because the Senate GOP Rescue New York agenda reads like a moderate Democrat agenda. A safer New York, making public safety a priority, investing in law enforcement, reducing the use and prevalence of illegal firearms. This is the Senate GOP. Reducing the use and prevalence of illegal firearms. Fun fact, if you're not in compliance with the SAFE Act, you are technically dealing with an illegal firearm. According to Senate Republicans, they no longer care about you. We've known that. Some of us have known for a long time, and we've argued with some of you people about this. Well, now they're willing to put it on paper because you're too stupid to read it. So, congratulations. Curtailing gun crimes. Any misdemeanor involving the use or possession of a firearm. Once again, if you're not compliant to the SAFE Act, there you go. They want to raise age. They want to address drug crimes by expanding the war on drugs, expanding the government. Remember earlier when I said Kathy Hochul loves the police because she uses them to enforce her progressive agenda? Well, here's the Senate GOP playing right into your hands by giving her an empowered police force. The Senate Republicans are probably some of the dumbest people I've ever met. And I hope they watch this. I will gladly tell them this. Call them. Give them my number. You are some of the dumbest people I've ever met, because you are essentially a doormat into the progressive left's plan. And you are playing right into their hands. If you voted for any of these Senate Republicans, I'm sorry. But their whole policy, it's 12 pages long. And all it is more government jobs, more government spending, bigger government. And that's the GOP, the party of freedom and small government. That is because the GOP in New York State is no longer a legitimate party. They are now a third party. More people would rather be blank and independent and unaffiliated than Republican. And here's why. The GOP finally has admitted what I've been saying for 10 years. The New York State GOP is a jobs program. Why are they pushing for more government jobs? All the jobs that the GOP Senate Republicans are pushing for are jobs that generally lean right. Police, police, corrections officers, a lot of right-leaning departments that they think they can control. They finally put into writing what I've been telling you guys for years. The New York State GOP is nothing but a jobs program and a doormat that the progressive left will use to enforce their agenda. If you have any faith in the New York State GOP, you're a fool. They are going to lead you. They are going to drive the bus. Actually, Kathy Hochul's going to drive the bus. The Senate GOP is going to fill up the gas tank. And yes, it will be a gas-powered bus, not an electric bus, because don't forget, they're not going to be in compliance with the environmental tyranny that they pushed on you guys. So if you're a New York State resident, you're going to say, well, Duane, what's your solution? You made fun of the Democrats. You made fun of the Republicans. What is your solution? I think it's time to stop relying on politicians to solve your problems and be an adult and start doing it yourself, first of all. But that's going to be hard for some of you. And second of all, it's time to build coalitions locally and resist these through home rule. Resist these at a local level. Now, again, both parties have failed at a local level. But one example I will give before I sign off, because I'm pushing 20 minutes here, is look, they're not going to be able to enforce this climate control agenda without enforcing codes. Work with your code officer, work with your town to make sure that There are no new code enforcement plans put in place to, reject a house if it has a gas stove, reject a house if it has a gas furnace, et cetera, et cetera. You don't need politicians to do that. You need to get off your ass and do something. Relying on people like Rob Ortt to solve your problems, as evidenced by this Senate Republicans bill, which is, again, a Democrat-like bill, you're going to get nowhere. So thank you guys for tuning in. Every Wednesday I do one of these. This is my State of the State response. And to be honest with you, once again, to sum up the state of the state, government's going to attempt to solve problems created by government with more government. And that's the Democratic Kathy Hochul response. And the Senate GOP response is, well, government's going to create government problems by more government that we like. And that's really it. Republicans and Democrats have once again come together to absolutely shaft the New York residents. And I'm here for it because a lot of you guys deserve it. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, every Wednesday at 7 p.m. I will see you guys next Wednesday. I think next Wednesday we're going to talk about liberty imposed and liberty activated. So if you watch this show and said, Duane, this makes me mad. I put all my faith in voting because I'm not intelligent. Well, I'll give you some ideas of how you can spend your time more beneficially. So we'll talk about liberty activated and liberty imposed next week. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a great week. Take care.